Welcome back to my channel, everyone. Verneda Adele, your anti-racist event executive producer. And in this space, we are all about creating space for thriving event professionals, particularly those who are emerging producers and or you are in the space of ensuring that you get to take the leap from going in-house to being your own boss, your own producer, the creator of your own in-house team. So we are super excited that we are here today. We are going to be talking about this super exciting topic around, y'all need to stop overwhelming your clients. You're overwhelming your clients. And I'm going to even break it down more specifically that you're overwhelming your event clients around the space of that event project timeline. We all know we need them. We all know that they are necessary. Your client even asks you to put it together. They want to see it. They want to know that it's happening. They absolutely are attached to knowing that there is a project timeline happening. But what they do not formally express to you is that they're overwhelmed. And instead of saying that they're overwhelmed, you start having issues in communication. You start having challenges that come up that you feel like you shouldn't be having. You start feeling a level of anxiousness or frustration or distrust as you're working on your project, your client, with your client, whatever the event may be. And this particularly can happen with long scale events. So I'm Verneda Adele, your anti-racist event executive producer. I've been producing events for over 20 years, not only in major markets like New York City, Atlanta, LA, but even internationally has been an opportunity to really sink our teeth into having a cultural competency in and around events. But there are also mechanics that, particularly for those of you that want to get better in positioning yourself to break out on your own, or you're going for that first six-figure deal, that first six-figure year as an independent producer or developing your own event production house, this is the space for you. And so I like to come with tips, and we always do like kind of 3 to 5 takeaways around things to improve your lot as an event executive producer. And one of those things that I always try to bring us back to is to understand that the experience that your client is having with you greatly impacts their perception of the value of your services. So if your client feels overwhelmed, even though you're doing everything right, you're doing all the things that you're supposed to be doing, the event is going well, the outcome ends up being outstanding. If your client feels overwhelmed along the way, in the end, they're more than likely going to have had a negative experience with you, and we don't want that. So one of the tools that I often love to talk about to stop overwhelming your clients is to implement high-level milestones. Going back to this idea, we have had conversations about how critical that project timeline is, but anyone, particularly if you're in a long event, if you are more than 3 months out, if you are going to be in the trenches with your client for the next 6, 9, 12, even 18 months, raise your hand for all of the 18-month event runway time. 2 years. You have to implement milestones along the way that are easily grabbable, digestible by your client, and motivating to your client. So yes, we're going to have our product timeline, and it is super critical, and we want to get to the nitty-gritty of time and action, category of what that action belongs to, whether it's the production, whether it's client relations, whether it's the sponsorship action. We want all those things. We want the person responsible. We want your start date, your end date. What are the miniature actions that have to go along the way in order for the big action to take place? And even though your client want it, they hire you for it. 9 times out of 10, your client is not a event professional themselves. It is overwhelming to them to see pages and pages of a project timeline, whether that is in a manual form, whether that's using a project management tool. That's a whole video in and of itself, the project management tools that are available for event planning. So the solution, let's tap into the solution. To ensure that your clients have a heartwarming, positive review rehire, want to work with you again experience, I highly recommend implementing top line project milestones along the way and give that overview at the beginning of the project. So if you have a 9-month project ahead of you, you can chunk it down into quarters. You can chunk it down into 3 months at a time, 2 months at a time, but just give a highlight of what are the big key things that you will want to have along the way. Some examples of those big key things, when you have your fundraising strategy in place, when you have your sponsorship deck ready, when your mailing is going to go out, whether it's electronic or, believe it, social. And when social, you still want to send out those big fancy multi-part invitations. There's a timeline for that. There really should be its own timeline for the invitation, but I digress. Have that invitation mailing date as a milestone, honorees secured, entertainment secured. Depending on the type of event, you might need 18 months advance for that entertainment. You might need 6 months advance. But whatever it is, make sure you get those highlights to your client and particularly to the executive team and the board. The board of directors don't need to see your project timeline. Not the detailed, not the one that says that we have to choose the color of the napkins by XYZ date. They don't need the color of the napkins timeline, but they do need to know what are our financial milestones, what are our entertainment milestones, what are our honorees going to be placed in place, and what are their duties to do. And that's another thing. Be unafraid to separate your project timelines. Be okay with having different project timelines for different audiences. Everybody doesn't have to get the same project timeline. There's a core group who needs it. The core committee or the core development team, if it's a fundraising event, whoever the core team is, they need that long timeline with all of the nitty-gritty details. Board has its own timeline. Executive team has its own timeline. Talent has its own timeline. Don't be afraid to break things out so you can start with your milestones and then back into your larger detail and then break out the details just so who needs to know what. The last thing I would say about that is everybody likes to work differently. And sometimes, and speaking of overwhelm, because you also don't want to overwhelm yourself. Project timelines are extremely time consuming when they're done well and when they're done with care. And even if you're going to use some AI tools to do it with you, you still have to look over it to know that it's right. It's like AI can only take you so far. And the time that it takes to go through the project timeline to ensure that you are aligned that is time. In order to keep the client in the know and to know that things are moving forward, I often offer a rolling project timeline. And what I mean by that is have your key milestones right up front and then chunk it down. Here's your first quarter project timeline in detail. When you have that, in addition to those big milestones, it often gives space to even allow yourself to get further clarity on where the event is going. When you're working on a project that's 18 months long, 10 months long, 6 months long, wherever you start isn't always exactly where you end up. And you got to give yourself space for that project timeline to maneuver and to adapt. So give a big chunk up front for those first, 30 days, that first 90 days. And then as the project moves along and you're able to adapt, open up the next, 30 days to 90 days where everybody can see, hey, here's where we're going. And that is how you fill in that initial top line, big milestone picture so that everyone can see where the nitty-gritty, that you have the nitty detail. I'll be honest with you, I don't know that many clients that actually take time to read every single line of a project timeline, but they absolutely want to know that it's there, that it exists, and that you've got it. So these are just some of the ways that you can manage your own time, manage your team's time, utilize tools that are available to us, but more than anything else, not overwhelm your client. So this is Verneda Adele. Thank you for tapping in this week, and subscribe here at Verneda Adele for more videos around tips of the trade in the event industry, how you can set yourself up to be your own independent producer or to start your own event production house. I have done both. You can tap with me at Verneda Adele across any channel. Let me know if you are ever in need of whether it's a consultation or you are looking for production for your own event. You can tap in with us at Production by Human Intonation. We absolutely love you all, and we cannot wait. We will be back in New York City in 2 weeks' time with the National Society of Black Wedding and Event Professionals. They will be having their upcoming membership event on April 13th. If you have not tapped in with this organization, it is absolutely fabulous. We really, really love seeing thriving Black event professionals in our sector coming together and just doing amazing things. Tap in at Verneda Adele. We'll be back next week with another video, and let the world know how you'll use